But there's a quotation that I like from Billy Graham, and he says that, be aware, there are certain things that have not changed in all these centuries, right? And he also goes further to say that the first thing that has never changed in all these centuries, he says that the nature of whatever it is that you say. Rather, don't say anything at all. Rather, don't say anything at all. Rather than for you to say something and not act upon it, right? Or for you to say something and not fulfill it. Greetings once again and welcome back to the channel, guys. Welcome back. Now, if you're new to the channel, make sure that you subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so that you do not miss when a new video pops up, right? Now, keep in mind, guys, that you are now available on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Overcast, as well as on Amazon Music, and you can be sure to follow us on either one or even all of the different platforms we've just mentioned. Now, also keep in mind, guys, that you are now available on TikTok at sinnersaved_by_grace, and you can be sure to find us there as well and follow us, where you can then get the short messages that we share on a daily basis, right? Now, also, guys, now this is to my podcasters. Keep in mind that you are now available on YouTube at Ashley Terrera, right, where we then also talk about the verses or share the verses that we talk about on the podcast as well, right? Now, guys, today our topic for today says that the importance of keeping your word. The importance of keeping your word, guys. You know, there's a saying that usually goes on, and they say that your word is your honor. Some say that your word is your bond. So now today we are going to dive deep into that and try to understand what actually is happening. What does this all mean? And remember, guys, we said now we are in the book of Kings, the book of leaders, right? So now keep this in mind, the book of leaders, and we're talking about your word is your honor. Now, to find out more, stick around. Now, without wasting further time, guys, we are going to be reading from the book of 1 Kings chapter 2 verse 46, right? Yes, 1 Kings chapter 2 verse 46, and that is where we're going to be getting our context for today. And it reads as follows. So the king commanded Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, which went out and fell upon him, that he died, and the kingdom was established in the hand of Solomon. Now, as we've just read, guys, now when we come to verse 46, there's a lot of dying happening here, right? There's a lot of, there's dying, there's an activity of dying here. So what had happened for it to get to this point where now there's now death and people are falling upon the other one, and the other one is being slayed for things that you're asking yourself, so what had happened for this to happen? Now, if we take our Bibles back and we go to verse 35 and verse 36 and 37, right, we now get this is now when Solomon was anointed king, right? And he talks to a guy called Shimei, and he tells him, you know what, build your house in Jerusalem, right, but do not go out of the city, right? In everything that you do, always remain in the city and never go out of the city of Jerusalem, right? So now Shimei also hearing these words, he says, you know what, king, the things that you are saying, right, these things are good to me, right? And I accept the conditions that you have given me. So in doing so, Shimei then decides to stay. And it says that in the Bible, it is recorded that after 3 years of him staying, in Jerusalem and not even going out, not even one time, that it is recorded that he went out. So after 3 years, after he had one of his servants or two of his servants decided to run away from him, right? And him, in following up his servants, he went out of Jerusalem, right? And he went to fetch them, and then he came back. And when he came back to Jerusalem, now this is when the Bible then tells us that when he came back, Solomon was told about these things, and Solomon brought him in, and he said, my guy, how is it possible that we had an agreement, we had an agreement, and you gave me your word that you're not going to go out. So how is it even possible that you have now trespassed according to what we had agreed on, right? So now Shimei, in hearing this then leads to where we read in verse 46, right, of verse 46, where then it is now written that in the end Shimei ended up losing his own life. Now, did he lose his life because he just went out? No, guys, it did not happen like that. But they had an agreement, right? And Solomon gave him his word, and he said, you know what, if you go out of the city, this is going to happen to you. You are surely going to die. So then Shimei in doing these things. So when he went out of Jerusalem, he knew chances of him dying were actually high. So when he came back, we now realize in verse 46 that this is actually what happened. So for our message for today, guys, remember we said that your word is your honor, or rather some say that your word is your bond as well. And this is what we get from the book of First Kings chapter 2 verse 46, right? So now why am I saying your word is your honor? Remember, Solomon had given this guy his word and said, if you go out of Jerusalem, right, if you go out of Jerusalem, you are going to die. So when Shimei came back, he could have told him that, you know what, I didn't just go there for my own pleasures. I didn't just go there because, you know, I wanted to look out and have a vacation. I don't know what to call it these days, you know, have a vacation, just go out on touring, you know, and seeing all these kind of things. But in the end, his word, because he had given his word, Solomon had to act upon his word, right? Because Solomon had said, if you go out, you are going to surely die. So Solomon had to act upon his word, and that is something that you should do as a leader, right? Remember, we say that this is the book of kings, right? And this is a book of leaders. So when you give your word as a leader, right? When you give your word as a leader, guys, remember that you should keep your word. Do not be a wishy-washy leader. You know, one day you're saying this, the other day you're saying something else, the other day you're saying something else. You know, you're always changing. You're like a wave. You know, you toss this side, toss that other side, toss on top, toss to the bottom. You know, you're just moving with the wave, you're just moving with the flow, and you know, flowing like the river and moving wherever the wind directs you. That's where you go. No, guys, when it comes to your word is your honor, and that is something that you should keep in mind if you want to be a great leader, right? Do not say things and mean the other thing, right? But when you say something, make sure that you act upon it, because the moment you do not act upon it, it loses value. Even people do not respect you, because they'll be like, this leader said this, now they're acting on another way. You know, one thing they're saying this, other time they're doing that other thing, you know, and it's a recurring thing, right? And people will not respect that, right? People who will be following you as their leader will look at you and say, you do not lead by example, right? So as a leader, keep in mind that whatever it is that you say, rather don't say anything at all. Rather don't say anything at all, rather than for you to say something and not act upon it, right? Or for you to say something and not fulfill it, right? So this is what we are getting from the book of First Kings chapter 1 verse 46, right? Or rather from verse 35, 36, 37, and we go up until verse 46. This is what we are getting, guys. Your word is your honor. So keep this in mind, guys, and this is in closing. Keep this in mind as you go on about your life. Your word is your honor. Don't just say things that you don't mean. Don't just say things that you know later on you will not be able to fulfill them, right? So rather don't even say anything at all if you know that you're not going to do those things that you're talking about, right? So as we have heard here in the book of First Kings, right, Solomon ended up acting on his word, which shows authority, guys, which shows authority, and he was able to act upon his own word. So what have you been saying to other people? What is it that your word now has been taken of no value because you say one thing and then on the other side you also don't act upon what you have said? So today, guys, take this message and keep it in mind that what you say you have to fulfill, right? Do not say one thing and mean the other. And also, guys, keep in mind that whatever you say, your word is your honor, and whatever you say you have to fulfill. May God bless you. It's going the extra mile. Don't just do things that are normal, guys. Don't just aspire to be a mediocre person. No, don't do that. As a leader, that's not what you're not going to get to be a leader, to get to the top by just doing the bare minimum. Anyone can do the bare minimum.